going on, everybody? You are listening to Trail Tales. My name is Kyle O'Grady, and every single week on this podcast, I, a thru hiker, a peak bagger, a huge hiking nerd, chat with other thru hikers and other peak baggers and other hiking nerds about their experiences on the trail. This week's guest is a man named Christopher Johnson. His trail name is Anubis, and you might recognize that name, and that's because he was a guest all the way back on episode number 54. He was towards the end of his southbound Appalachian Trail thru hike when we last spoke, and I gotta say, pretty much right after our episode was released, this was back in mid to late November if I recall correctly, shortly after the episode was released, he had a medical emergency while he was on trail. Thankfully, he was okay, and after a 2-week break, he was able to get back on trail and go on to complete the AT, which is super amazing. And honestly, we spend most of the episode talking about that, and we also just talk about what it was like to finish the Appalachian Trail, something that I really don't ask people about that often on the show that I probably should. So either way, it was a great episode, and Anubis, when you hear this, I'm stoked that you finished. I'm stoked that you are healthy, and I'm stoked that you were able to come back on a second time. So let's do it again soon. We're gonna get into the episode in just a second. First, let me plug some stuff. Instagram at TrailTalesPod. Go follow the show. And if you've heard me plug that like throughout all these episodes and you still haven't followed, I feel like you're probably not going to follow anyways, but in case you're new, please go follow the show on Instagram. Is that a good pitch? Probably not. Facebook is a thing as well. Go like the show on Facebook, and of course the email. I love the email, trailtalespod@gmail.com. Email me some guest suggestions, some trails you'd like me to cover, or just send me an email and say hi. That would be really, really cool. My YouTube channel, I gotta plug that, of course. Kyle Hates Hiking on YouTube. A lot of people have been smashing the subscribe button lately. So yeah, go check that out if you haven't done that already. Link in the show notes, or yeah, if you just search Kyle Hates Hiking on YouTube, you can go watch some of my very goofy videos. And the last thing I'm gonna plug, Patreon. Patreon.com/Trail Tales. If you listen to the show every week and you actually listen to my introductions too, then come on, I feel like you got to check out the Patreon. $5 a month, you'll get a bonus episode, a blooper reel, and access to a monthly video chat with myself and all of these other hiking nerds that have signed up on the Patreon. So yeah, go check that out. Patreon.com/Trail Tales. I would really appreciate the support. With that said, folks, I am butchering this introduction. This has taken me way longer than it usually does, so I'm going to cut it short. Let's get into the conversation with Christopher Johnson, Anubis, Appalachian Trail southbound, class of 2019. Christopher Johnson, Anubis, what's going on, man? Welcome back to the show.
Hey.
This is crazy. Congrats, dude. I was saving the congrats for when we actually started recording. Because, yeah, dude, since we last talked, you finished the AT, which is so freaking awesome. So, yeah, dude, I'm stoked. I'm stoked that you're back. And, yeah, congrats, man. How's it feel?
Thank you. Feels pretty good. I'm about 5 weeks removed from the end. So I'm kind of at that point where it's like, did any of that even really happen?
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I've been talking to some people with, like, really weird, like, time frames for their thru hikes, because like last week I talked to Ryan Fox, and he started a SOBO in August, which is really freaking bizarre, and obviously finished pretty late because of that, and you finished pretty late. So yeah, anyways, that just popped into my head. Dude, so our last conversation, as you just reminded me right before we started recording, was in like mid-November, episode number 54. This is going to be 67, so not even that long ago in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of Trail Tales history, so which only spans like a year and a half. Anyways, you were in a much different position the last time we talked. Yeah, that's what I meant to say there. Yeah, you had. Let's see, you said what, like 400-ish miles left in the AT?
Yeah, it was around 412.
412, okay. But who's counting, right? So you were in a
I was.
Hampton. Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, that's true. I guess you of all people would be fucking counting that shit. But you were in Hampton, Tennessee, if I recall, because that's what you just reminded me of a few minutes ago. But if I recall, yeah, Hampton, Tennessee.
Yep, I was at Boots Off Hostel.
Boots Off Hostel. So that was like and I think we talked about this. That's like a pretty critical point in your through hike, right? Because you're like way beyond halfway. You're in like almost the home stretch, I guess, depending on how you look at it. But 400 miles, 412 miles is still a lot of fucking miles, no matter how far you've hiked up to that point. So I just kind of remember talking about that a little bit. Little did we know, some shit definitely went down. Like soon after we talked, and soon after the episode was released, at least. And we're gonna kind of get into that today. So, dude, I don't even know, like, there's just so much here. Where should we, okay, take me through, like, the first couple days after we talked, and take me up to the incident, which we are going to get into in just a second.
So we left Boots Off, was planning on getting into the Roan Highlands. We got dropped off at the road, whatever road we were at. It was some dirt road. And started hiking. It was snowing. We got, and I say we, me and Winnie, my dog.
Yeah.
It was like 5 or 6 miles into the day, and I can't even remember the name of the mountain now. But it was only like a 3,000-foot mountain, and it was just dumping snow. And I came to a clearing where I could see what was supposed to be the Roan Highlands, Carver's Gap, that whole area, and it was completely socked in. So once I got to 19E, I decided instead of going into the Roan Highlands, we would stay at the Station 19E hostel. And the next day, got dropped off at Carver's Gap and slack packed back to the hostel because I wanted to make sure there wasn't too much snow up there. And then the following day, did Carver's Gap to some shelter. I never knew what shelter I was even staying at, but I know it was like a 19-point-something mile day. And the next day, hiking into Irwin, my appendix decided it didn't want to work anymore. It was literally like a couple days after we talked, I was keeled over on the trail.
I remember because usually after the episodes are released, I ask my guests to kind of share them on social media and stuff. And I was kind of waiting for you to share it. And then when I read what happened, I was like, oh, well, fuck, I'm not going to message this guy now and be like, hey, I know you're like in the hospital, but like, could you plug my shit? Like, you know, obviously that's not going to happen. So
you messaged me that it went live as I was keeled over on the trail.
Oh my God.
You're like, hey, we're live, but go ahead and wait until after Thanksgiving to plug it in. I looked down at my phone. I'm like, ah.
Sorry, Kyle, but bigger things to fucking worry about right now. So, dude, I don't even know. Let's jump into that story then. So, yeah, having my appendix like burst, or I don't even know like what the hell goes on, but like that whole thing is like one of my biggest fears because it seems like it happens so randomly. Like, am I right in that? Like, is it hard to predict, or are there like signs of this that like people should know about? Like, I don't even know. And just like having that happen, like basically your exact scenario just scares the shit out of me. Like, cause it just seems so random, you know?
It was super random. There are symptoms. So even like when I was in the hospital, the doctors, they're like, well, you didn't have any symptoms? And I was like, well, like what? They're like, like, did you feel tired? I was like, well, I've walked 1,800 miles from
Right.
Maine. Like, yeah, I'm tired every day. They're like, did like your right shoulder kind of like hurt a little bit? And I'm like, I'm carrying a backpack up and down mountains.
Like, did you smell really bad? Like,
yeah, yeah. So, it was kind of similar, I guess, to, like northbounders up, like in New Hampshire and stuff like that. Like if they have Lyme's disease,
mm-hmm.
They don't know what's going on. They finally make their way to the hospital and, a doctor's like, well, you didn't feel tired. And it's like, well, I walked here from Georgia. Like, of course I felt tired.
Mm-hmm.
But the morning of, well, actually, okay. So it was weird. The day before it happened, Winnie was acting super, super weird. Anytime we like came up on a road crossing, like she would like start to cross it and like stand there and whimper at me. All the pictures that I took of her like on Roan Mountain and stuff like that, like she's looking at me like super concerned. But I didn't, I didn't pick up on, that anything was wrong. And luckily I had met, two hikers, the day before everything happened, cutting across the highlands. And, we were camped together, the night before everything happened. And the next morning, me and this guy Candy Bar, we left the shelter first. And then this girl Acorn was behind us. And we're bebopping along and we're hiking together and we're talking and we're trying to get into Irwin for hiker Thanksgiving. And I'm like, dude, Candy Bar, like my stomach, like I feel like I have a gas bubble or something. And we're talking about, is it Giardia? Like the night before they watched me eat 4 packets of ramen mixed with a full bag of mashed potatoes. And yeah, I'm thinking like, oh my God, like I ate the biggest ramen bomb in the world. Like it's not digesting properly. I'm thinking about like, like I mixed Winnie's food, like her dry food with like chicken salad or tuna salad. And I got to a point in my hike where instead of her cleaning my spoon, like I would just clean my spoon myself. So I'm like, I'm getting super scared. Like, oh my God, like I've been eating dog food and chicken salad. Like, my body can't process it. And yeah, I got to this point where I was feeling nauseous. And when he was hiking with Candy Bar, like right in front of me, and I was like, well, maybe I'll make myself throw up. And no hiker wants another hiker to see them throw up. So I let them get ahead and I ducked behind an oak tree. I tried to do that. It didn't work. At that point, they'd gotten way ahead of me. And about a mile later, I felt like the inside of my body was like ripping in half.
Jesus.
But it's like super random. Like after my appendix got removed, the number of people that I've met, they're like, oh yeah, I don't have an appendix either. And I'm like, geez, like nobody has an appendix.
Hey, you'll save some weight at least. I had to make that joke, like fucking ultralight, like jerk kind of shit. Like I had to make that joke. Well, Jesus Christ, dude. So what happened? Like, I hope you don't mind like talking through this stuff, but I'm just like so curious because, like I said, this is like a huge fear of mine. Not that I have any reason to believe my appendix is gonna burst, but just because apparently it's super fucking random. So, yeah, dude, like. Take me through like when it actually happened. Obviously, like something's wrong, like you just said there, but like it happens. Like what like immediately after? Like what? Okay, actually, hold on. Let me ask this. When did you actually realize like something was terribly wrong and you needed to like get off the trail like ASAP and get to a hospital?
So luckily, since we were hiking into Irwin, we passed. I crossed a road. It was Indian Grave Gap, which I would later find out there's like 2 or 3 Indian Grave Gaps like after that. But I'd passed this road and I started climbing down a mountain, and it was like I was about a mile south of the road, and all of a sudden, I mean, I like ripped my pack off and like just dropped down into the trail, and I'm curled up in a ball. And luckily where I had, collapsed on the trail, I had just like a sliver of service. I texted another hiker. I was like, I don't know what's going on. Like, please contact Uncle Johnny's hostel. And like a shuttle driver needs to come up here. Like, I need to try and make my way back to the road. And basically, I guess an eternity later, but it was probably like 10 minutes later, the pain had subsided just enough. And at this point, I have one trekking pole because, like trekking poles break, you lose trekking poles.
Mm-hmm.
And I left my pack and my camera and all that on the side of the trail and kind of stood up and like felt like Quasimodo from Notre Dame, like all hunched over. So I had this one trekking pole, but I knew that girl Acorn was somewhere behind me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, if I can walk back up this mountain and at some point run into her, she can help me. So I'm walking up this mountain with this one pole, and she comes trotting down the mountain. She's like, Anubis, what's wrong? Like, does your knee hurt? And I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
Jesus.
And, I'm explaining it to her, and she drops her pack. She runs down. She grabs my pack. And I made it, I think, like 0.3 miles back up this mountain, and I just collapsed again. And I looked, I was like, you have to call 911. Like, I don't know what's going on, and there's just no way I can make it. So she was on the phone with 911. Search and rescue was going to take, like 45 minutes, I think.
To get to you or to get to like the road?
To get to me, it's the day before Thanksgiving. So they had to assemble volunteers. They had to pull people together.
Get out there, obviously.
Yeah, so the hostel ended up actually getting there well before that. I was like, call off search and rescue. Like, I don't want to pay for that if they're not gonna like get here. So somebody from Uncle Johnny's hostel like came running, and he carried my pack out. He had a trekking pole I could use, and I hiked the 0.7 miles back out from there, and there were the paramedics. And at that point, it was weird because like my appendix didn't fully burst; it perforated, so it like tore, which I guess relieved some of the pressure. So by the time I get to the paramedics, they're like looking over me, and I'm like kind of feeling better a little bit, like I'm back to thinking it might be a gas bubble. And they're like, you need to go to the hospital. Like, do you want us to take you? I'm like, no, I would rather stick with, like the hostel taking me there. And jumped in the shuttle and got taken to a small hospital in Irwin, Tennessee, and got wheelchaired in and was in surgery that night.
Jesus Christ. So then how long were you off trail? First of all, like, to everybody listening, this dude is a fucking trooper. I feel like having like your appendix removed would be a very valid excuse to end or at least postpone a through hike. But dude, I remember when I had kind of messaged you, just kind of sending my my wishes or whatever, fucking, and I was like, well, what are you going to do? And you were like, oh, dude, I'm getting back out there. Like, no question. You were still in the hospital at this point. It's not like you're like back on trail.
Yeah,
you were
like,
like,
I had to transfer hospitals too.
Jesus Christ, man. Like from that message, at least, I'll let you speak to this, but from that message, you made it sound like there is like absolutely no consideration of quitting. I mean, you were just like, I'm going to rest and I'm going to get back out there as soon as I could. Is that pretty much what it was like? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny because I listened to, like we talked about before the podcast, like I listened to the podcast that we recorded when I was in Hampton, and we were talking about like the different times I wanted to quit and all that, and all of a sudden I had a legitimate reason to quit the trail, and I was like, fuck no. And like I had a friend from back home while I was in the hospital. His text was just literally, you can come home now. And I was like, I'm not fucking done. So yeah, it was it was wild because so I ended up in the hospital first in Irwin, Tennessee. And like I said, so hiker Thanksgiving's going on. So there's southbounders from up and down the trail that had, gotten shuttled all into town. And so people from my original trail family, they're messaging me. They're like, holy fuck, like, are you okay? And this guy Bunkhouse that I summited Katahdin with, and we hiked together all the way until like Waynesboro. Like he caught a ride up to the hospital, and
wow.
I'm crying at this point because I don't know. At that point, I didn't know what was going on, and I was like, dude, I don't know if my hike's over. Like, I don't want it to be over, and got transferred hospitals, and it was Elizabethtown or something like that, and that's where I went into surgery. And other hikers were coming up there and visiting me and like bringing me gifts. And it was really incredible the way that like the hiker community pulled together. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so after that, I was sidelined for 2 weeks in Irwin, Tennessee.
Damn, 2 weeks.
Oh, Irwin, 2 weeks.
And you were already a little bit. I mean, I don't want to say you were behind schedule, but you were a little bit on like the later side, and then you had to take 2 weeks off. Like, did you ever? I'm really going to press you on this. Did you ever, even for a second, like think about quitting? I'm sure like in the immediate aftermath, you weren't really thinking about that. But like once you finally got a second to catch your breath after all this stuff and start to potentially make those decisions, like was it ever even a thought, or was it just like, fuck, like I can't let this take me down, While
I was in Irwin, there was never a doubt in my mind that I was going to keep pressing on.
That's insane.
I was counting down the day like the days until like I had my follow-up appointment 2 weeks later.
Jesus Christ.
A couple weeks later, I was singing a different tune, but in
Okay,
Irwin,
okay. Well,
yeah.
okay. Well, what happened then? Yeah, take me a little bit beyond the appendix incident and recovery.
So once I was cleared to hike again,
Actually, hold up. Just what you said there. Cleared to hike again. What did the doctor say about you returning to the trail? That's a big question here. Did they have anything like? Did they tell you not to or anything like that?
So it was cool because the surgical team, like everybody in the hospital knew I was a thru hiker. In fact, actually, this is kind of a funny story. Once I transferred hospitals, I knew I smelled like shit. I couldn't smell myself, but I knew I smelled, just fucking disgusting.
I can confirm that you did when we hung out in Burlington.
Just awful. And so I transfer hospitals, and like the nurses are in there, they're being polite, and they're like, all right, like let's take your shoes off and your socks. And I'm like, oh my God, like you guys don't know what's about to happen, like me taking my shoes off. I was like, I really, really, really need to take a shower before you guys put me under. And so I'm like, they were able to get special permission for me to take a shower before I went into surgery. And I'm in the shower in the hospital, just like hunched over, trying so hard to soak myself. And like the IV line is wrapped in plastic. And the whole thing was a nightmare. But I knew that I was in this just ridiculous situation of just smelling awful. But so it was cool because everybody in the hospital, they knew I was thru hiking. They knew I'd walked there from Maine. Like they were just super cool, like asking me questions, and everything kept getting delayed. And so everyone knew what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And when I went in for my follow-up appointment, the surgeon, I mean, he gave me some like, I guess like mental warnings. Like he cleared me. He looked over everything. He's like, dude, you healed like real quick. He's like, don't be surprised if you get fatigued easily. You shouldn't carry anything heavy.
How much does your pack weigh?
Yeah. So yeah, I ended up actually having to pay to slack pack from Irwin, Tennessee, all the way to Hot Springs, North Carolina.
Wow. How many miles is that? I don't remember.
If none of this had happened, it would have only been like 3 days of backpacking. So I'm going to guess like 60 miles.
Okay.
I don't remember the mileage. I'm just going to base it off 20 miles a day. Yeah, so I had to slack pack all the way to Hot Springs. And then after that was when I finally put on a full pack for my first time.
Gotcha. But they at least they didn't like just tell you not to fucking like go back out, right? They
knew when I got released from the hospital, I was chomping at the bit to get back out there.
Yeah. Okay.
I showed up to my follow-up appointment in my hiking clothes.
just ready to go.
Ready to go. Oh, actually, once they released me, I went out and I did a real quick 7-mile like slack pack thing back into because I never made it to Irwin. I was still like 7 miles outside of Irwin when everything happened.
And how did you feel like those first couple days while you were slack packing, while you were back on trail?
Terrible.
Really?
So I had this audacious idea. I did like 7.7 or something like that from Indian Grave Gap into Irwin. And then I was like, and it was all downhill. I'm like, oh, that felt great. Like I'm going to do a 28-mile slack pack tomorrow. And I was like 6 miles into it. And I text the girl that was like shuttling me. I was like, listen, I can't do 28 miles. Like, I don't even know if I can do 13 to the next gap. You're going to have to pick me up way short of like me coming back to town. And honestly, I was like really frustrated, like for a hot minute. And the doctor had actually warned me. He was like, you're going to fatigue easily and blah, 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 blah. But they had warned me that I might not get my trail legs back before I summited Springer.
Right.
Like I was back to like the beginning again.
Even after just 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, because there was that and there was the surgery, and even though I was cleared to hike and cleared to carry the weight of my pack, I was still feeling things because there was 3 incisions in my stomach.
Right.
So I was still feeling that. Yeah, it was It was a very slow crawl once I hiked out of Irwin.
Mm-hmm. And how long did it take before you were kind of, I mean, like you said, it'd kind of be tough to get like your complete like 100% health back, but I'm assuming you were able to kind of ramp up the mileage again at some point, right?
Yeah.
So how long did that take before you felt as like strong as you possibly could after that happened? You know,
it was kind of shitty because Hiawassee, Georgia.
so pretty much at the end then. Tim.
Well, hiking out of Franklin, North Carolina, which is, I guess, northbound 110.
Well, yeah,
I had like
like
one.
that.
Yeah,
it's like my second resupply. Yeah.
I was starting to feel stronger. But yeah, it was basically, I mean, North Carolina. Well, and I don't know if North Carolina is just an ass kicker or if I was still like regaining strength.
North Carolina is tough. It is tough. Yeah. It's not like the whites or Southern Maine, but for the South, like it's yeah. I wouldn't say it's easy.
No, not at all. I mean, I've in my head, like as a southbounder, like after Fontana, so like when it's like strictly North Carolina, I think it's the third hardest part of the trail.
Yeah, man.
I was just like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, I could get down with that.
Oh, dude, it was fucking awful. So yeah, I mean, I'd say Hiawassee, like I had 5 days left on the trail and I was like, yeah, I'm feeling good. And at that point I also wanted to slow it down. So, I think I was doing like 15s through Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's not too bad though. So yeah, dude, let's talk about weather a little bit. So one of the things that we had talked about in our last conversation, if I recall correctly, is that you had started to see some winter-ish weather, you know, even with 400 miles left. So I'm assuming, I mean, you're going south, so you're further south, less snow is the idea, but I'm sure you still got some stuff, especially like through the higher peaks in the Smokies and other parts of North Carolina and stuff like that. So what was the weather like post our last conversation?
So I saw more snow. Actually, the day I was cleared to hike again, it snowed the night before.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw snow through Irwin, Big Bald, Little Bald. That was all snowed over. When I got into Hot Springs, it snowed again. It's funny though. I guess it's ironic. I'd ordered micro spikes after going through the Roan Highlands. I was like, fuck, like I was sliding all over the fucking place.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, as soon as I can order micro spikes, I'm ordering micro spikes. And everybody in the Smokies at the time, you know, was like, oh, we're like, we need micro spikes. And so I ordered these micro spikes, and by the time I got into the Smokies where I thought I'd need them, I had 55. It was like 60-degree weather.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so I was wrong in my prediction there.
Oh, it was. Everybody else got fucked in the Smokies, and like, I mean, we're talking to the point where like southbounders were like, I'll come back in March.
Jesus
Like
Christ.
I'm getting off trail, and even like while I was recovering, there were a couple southbounders that I knew that, I mean, they got snowed in. It was like 1.5 foot of snow in the Smokies, and I'm like, holy crap! Like, do I need my snowshoes sent out? And by the time I got down there, yeah, there was no snow. It was 55 degrees. By the time I got to Franklin, I mailed all my snow stuff home. You know, because I'd been hiking in snow gators, and there was snow everywhere. There was one final dumping while I was in Franklin. It was like 5 inches of snow when I was climbing up. Was it Winding Stair Gap?
Probably. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I kept losing the trail, and you know, when there's snow on the side of the trees, you can't see white blazes. And after that, everything warmed up, and it basically rained every day until I was done.
When you say warmed up, how warm are we talking here?
40s.
Well, you see, okay, so I feel like 40s and rain was almost worse than like slightly colder temperatures, but at least like some solid snow. What do you think about that?
I was sweating bullets. I would have rather have had snow at that point.
Yeah, because like just from my experience, like hiking in above freezing but close to freezing temperatures and rain is like prime hypothermia like territory, because you're soaking wet. At least when it's snowing, I mean, you might get a little wet, but you're not going to get as like thoroughly soaked as you are when it's raining. And 40 degrees, though it's not freezing, it's still pretty damn cold. So yeah, I just from my experience, like some of the sketchiest scenarios as far as like weather goes, for me have been, like in those exact conditions. So I think that really would have, like, I only saw a couple days like that at the end of my thru hike. Like, that would have been a huge bummer, like being so close with your health, obviously. That problem as well. Like, dude, that, I don't want to say it's a miracle that you finished, because I feel like that doesn't give you credit, but, I admire your grit. I'll say that. Like, dude, so incredible. Like, can you just talk about that a little bit? Like, how the hell did you push yourself through all this shit?
I'm completely convinced I like lost my mind somewhere in Tennessee, or I mean, North Carolina. Like, I was, God, I have this video on Facebook, and then it was like a story on Instagram. It was January 1st, and I'm like a part of me is like, oh, like I never should have posted that. Like, that was nuts. But I'm like screaming at my phone as I'm filming myself. Like, it's January 1st. I'm still fucking walking, and I'm on this whole long rant of like, I'm fucking over it. And I had like 100 miles to go. Luckily a bunch of pass-through hikers were like, dude, like, thank you for putting into words, like, how I felt in the 100-mile wilderness, or this and that and this and that. But towards God, honestly, I think I thought about quitting more in like from like my like 150 miles out to like 50 miles out, like that kind of like 100-mile stretch where I'm like so close I can taste it, but I didn't feel like I was going anywhere. And there were a lot of mornings, even with like the rain, like I'd be in a shelter, and I'm like, I'm not going out in that. I'm not gonna put my dog in that either. Like,
yeah, yeah.
There were a lot of like really like there were days where we were leaving the shelter at like 11 o'clock in the morning. Mentally, yeah, towards the end, I don't know. I felt like it was a crawl, like between the weather and, the fact that, I was like trying to rebuild myself. It was,
I don't mean to bring back bad memories here, but damn, dude. Let me ask you this. I meant to ask this while we were talking about the appendix thing, but did I understand this correctly when you were telling the story? Was Winnie, your dog, actually not with you when that happened? It sounded like...
So Winnie's hiking style, like, I trust her completely. Like, she doesn't chase animals. She doesn't go after snakes. She doesn't shit on the trail. She doesn't, she's like, she very much has like trail etiquette. So sometimes she doesn't even hike with me. Like, she might hike with another hiker. Yeah. So she had hiked on with this guy Candy Bar, and after I dropped to my knees and like kind of keeled over on the trail.
Right. I was gonna ask like how you got reunited.
Yeah. So she won't go too far from me. Like, she might go around a bend, or even sometimes she'll even get like a mile away from me with another hiker. But after a while, like, she's gonna realize like, oh, my dad's not with me. And so I was keeled over on the trail. She came trotting back and like laid down next to me and was just like licking the back of my neck.
Okay, so she did.
So
come
yeah,
back.
she hiked out with me, and when I got dropped off at the hospital, this hostel car with Uncle Johnny's I guess widow and another guy that worked there, and that girl Acorn, like, she watched me get dropped off and they drove off with her. She was like super confused.
Yeah, I bet. Dude, I feel like I need to give you a chance to plug some of the hostels and some of the people that helped you out in this scenario, because it sounds like they played a pretty big role in, ensuring your safety there and getting you to the hospital and looking after the dog and stuff like that. So Did you just say it was Uncle Johnny's? Was anybody else like involved? Like, can you just give a quick shout out to the people who, just helped you out in this very, very awful situation?
Yeah, so Uncle Johnny's was the one that showed up, got me out of there, got Winnie out of there. I actually stayed with the owners of Irwin Outdoor Supply, which is an outdoor gear company there in Irwin. I stayed with them for 2 weeks. I lived.
Oh, so you weren't in the hospital?
No, I was only in the hospital for like 2 days.
Okay, I gotcha. Recovery, not going to be.
Yeah, I stayed with complete strangers for 2 weeks.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. I lived in their basement, and honestly, if it wasn't for them, I guess I would have been at the hostel. And I don't know. I mean, the whole situation was expensive enough.
Yeah.
Even with insurance and things like that, like covering medical expenses, it's not like I'm going to like sit in a basement and eat ramen. Like, I'm still going out to eat. I'm ordering pizza. Like, yeah, if it wasn't for Uncle Johnny's hostel, and then the owners of Irwin Outdoor Supply, I don't know what I would have done.
That's incredible. Dude, that's so incredible. I'm glad I kind of went back to that question there, because I didn't realize that you had. Okay, so how the hell did you even get in contact with the owners and convince them to let your stinky ass stay with them for 2 weeks, for 2 freaking weeks? Like, who takes in a stranger for 2 weeks? And this is one of those things where I could be like, oh, the trail community is like so amazing. I feel like that goes without saying. Like, people understand that that's just like, that's the kind of thing that people involved in this community do. But like, still, it's just, when you look at it from an outside perspective, like, that's just so incredible, man. Okay, so yeah, how did you get in contact with them?
So what was supposed to happen? Okay, so up here in Winchester, I work. My second job is at a gear shop, and the owner of my gear shop, as I was getting closer to Irwin, was like, "Hey, I have this couple. They own a gear shop in Irwin. They're willing to put you up for the night, so you can get to hike to Thanksgiving." And I actually text. So Tyler, he's the husband of the two. I text him as I'm like keeled over. I was like, because I'd already been in contact with him, like, "Hey, I'm coming into town." But I text him like when I keeled over, when everything was going on, I was like, "Dude, I just called 911. Like, I'm not coming." Basically was what I told him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went from I was supposed to hang out with them like overnight for Thanksgiving to, "Can I stay at your house for 2 weeks, please?"
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Damn, dude. Well, good for them. And good for Uncle Johnny's as well. Everybody who's going to be through hiking this year or sometime in the future should definitely go show both of those businesses some love. Both of them I did not stay with, so I can't give my personal input. But just based on that story, that's amazing. Like, dude, and not surprising. Again, I'm not surprised that people involved with the trail would bend over backwards like that for complete strangers. But it's still amazing nonetheless. Dude, I kind of want to take a step forward. So a number of minutes ago now, earlier on in the conversation, you had said, when I was asking you about if this whole situation made you think about quitting, you said that it didn't, but there was a time later on, like closer to the end even, that you did think about quitting. And then I think we kind of got away from it a little bit. Can you talk about that? Like, what that situation was, or what that moment was?
Yeah, it was definitely around Franklin. I don't know, I guess that's when I actually started regaining my strength, but I just gotten to the point where it was like, once I hit January 1st, at that point I had been hiking, I guess my 6-month trail anniversary would have been January 2nd. And I just got to the point, I'm like, everyone's gone. Like, everyone's hiked past me. Like, there was, I think at that time, there was like 8 southbounders behind me. and it was Wyabald, or it was somewhere outside of Franklin. There was like a stone tower.
Yeah. I know, I think it is. I remember that place.
Wyabald, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd gotten to it, and there's another one, another situation where, you know, it's New Year's Day. There's a ton of people there. Like, I show up, and like, I guess there was like a parking lot nearby. You
Yep.
could drive near the top, and
Yep.
everyone's in real nice clothes, and I'm showing up and just looking gross, and I'm getting all these looks, and I'm not feeling it, and like I didn't even like hang out and enjoy it. Like, I just hiked on, and that was when I got on my phone. I had my whole rant, like, it's January fucking 1st, and I'm still fucking walking, and
Hmm.
oh god, I was angry. I was angry that at that point, like, 6 months had gone by, and I still wasn't done.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, I'm stuck in like the negative stuff, like, oh, and it's actually kind of funny because at the time I was like, all my friends are done, they're home, like, it's over, and later on, like, they're texting me like, dude, like, slow it down, like, you know, like, we don't want to be home, but like,
Interesting.
I'm thinking to myself, like, no, you're fucking home, you can eat a steak, you can take a shower, you can, you know. And I'd gotten back in that whole, I can't believe I'm still out here. But then by the time I got to Hiawassee, I was looking back on all those miles that I was mad about, and I was like, oh my god, can I have all those back?
That's a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, well, because all of a sudden when I got to Hiawassee, I was like, fuck, I'm like 5 days from finishing. Like, I gotta go home.
Dude, that's kind of crazy. I'm just thinking about like how like the difference between the end like that when you're going Sobo versus when you're going Nobo, because when you're going Nobo, you have the 100-mile wilderness staring you down.
Yeah,
So I feel like you're almost forced to confront the end of the trail like earlier on than when you're going Sobo, because as you know, there's like once you get through the 100-mile, you're not technically done, but you're pretty much done, right? Like, so you have to kind of plan, like, when you leave Monson, like, that's it. Like, from Monson to the end of the trail, like, that's your last stretch. But when you're going Sobo, I mean, I know Hiawassee is what, like 70 or 80 miles, so it's not like that much further, but I don't know, that just, it's a weird dynamic there, you know?
I think Hiawassee. I actually texted a northbound friend of mine in Hiawassee, and I was like, dude, is Hiawassee like my Monson?
Yeah, right?
Because it was like,
For real.
yeah, no, I was at the Budget Inn, and you know, I'd done my resupply. I went, you know, I went to Taco Bell. I ordered like 20 burritos or whatever, and like, I was like thinking to myself, like damn, like, this is my last resupply. This is my last like town food. You know, like, all of a sudden I'm like, holy fuck, this is like all my lasts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, for us it's Hiawassee. Hiawassee, everything hit me, and I was like, wait a second. Like, I wanted this to end for so long, and now I do not want it to end at all.
Yeah. That's a little bit interesting, because just to compare this to mine, I definitely felt like that I wanted it to end. Of course, I was not dealing with some of the stuff you were. I think your situation was probably a little bit more difficult at the end than mine was, but you know, I definitely wanted it to end. But I will say that I think where our situations differ, when I got to Monson, we'll kind of compare Monson to like the Hiawassee situation there, like we just said. I still very much wanted it to end all the way through the 100-mile, all the way through the day that I climbed Katahdin. Like, there really wasn't any I mean, of course I was trying to reflect and you know, take everything in. It's not like I was like just like completely fuck this, but I was definitely ready to be done, and I don't think that that really changed at all, even when I was just like a day or two away from the end. So I just think that's kind of interesting how it almost seems like, I don't know, were you legitimately like, oh shit, I actually don't want this to end? Or were you more just like trying to kind of enjoy and take in those last couple days, even though in the back of your mind you still probably wanted it to end, if that makes sense?
I've gotten to a point. I mean, I definitely slowed it down. We I think from Hiawassee to Springer, we averaged like 15 miles a day.
Interesting.
Um, like, I mean, I was leaving camp at like 11 o'clock, and because at 11 o'clock, oh, I got to do 15 miles, like it's like 5 hours,
Hmm.
um, no, if man, if honestly, if I had the money in my bank account when I hit Springer, I would have turned around and walked back to Virginia.
You're nuts.
No,
What the hell's wrong with you?
no, like I want so, but dude, it was from like mile. It was like mile 1100. I was like, ah, if this can be over like anytime soon. And yeah, like 80 miles out, I was like, no, I actually don't want this to end at all. Um,
Interesting. Well then, what did it feel like when you finally finished? So this is a question that I have not asked a thru hiker in a long time. And I think I might have asked some people this at the beginning of Trail Tales just because I didn't fucking know what else to ask. But I feel like I don't really ask this question very often. So you're still relatively, it's still relatively, your finish was recent still. That's what I was trying to say there. So I feel like I think you're a good person to ask this question to. So you've got all these conflicting emotions, such a weird scenario at the end, with your appendix. What did it feel like to actually finish on Springer Mountain?
ugh, I'm hoping I can actually like describe it without like crying.
No, you can cry. Tears. I don't know if anybody's ever cried in the show before, but
I don't
it
think
is
anybody
encouraged.
like,
Please.
this is my favorite podcast. I don't think anyone's cried, but um,
There's a first.
so yeah. So I know Springer isn't Katahdin. Um, when I got to the plaque and the final blaze, yeah, man, I dropped. I mean, I dropped to my fucking knees, and I I must have cried for like an hour, is what it felt like. Um, I don't think it was. It wasn't so much that I was happy that it was over. Um, I just couldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like the odds, like they were stacked against me.
Yeah, man.
Like,
Especially after all this stuff with your health and your appendix.
dude,
Yeah.
like my dog surgery, like picking my dog up, the appendix, the weather. Um, oh man, there was so much going on throughout. But I
It,
mean, it's 6 months, spent living in the wilderness, um, but I was not happy. I mean, I was happy I finished, but I wasn't happy about being done.
mm-hmm.
Did that make sense?
That does make sense. And it's hard to explain, but I do know exactly what you mean. Again, I can't say I relate completely because I was happy I finished and I was happy to be done at the end of mine, but I do know what you mean. Yes. And it's funny you talk about how the odds were stacked against you. What you were referring to there, I think, are all the the additional like bad stuff that happened to you, because you got to keep in mind it doesn't matter if you have it doesn't matter who you are. The odds are always stacked against you when it comes to a thru hike, right? Like statistically speaking, most people do not finish their thru hikes.
Yeah, it's like what,
So
25% make it.
So just those original odds, like compounded with all of the shit that happened to you as well, it like that just I don't know where I'm going with this, but I just think it's incredible, dude. And congrats, man. Like I obviously I've talked to a lot of people that have finished the AT or any thru hike for that matter since I started the show, but your story has always kind of stuck out to me because of that. Because honestly, dude, if I had experienced a medical emergency like that at the end of my thru hike, I don't know if I would have continued. Honestly, this is coming from someone who lives and breathes hiking, someone who fucking talks about this shit for at least an hour every single week, does these stupid YouTube videos, someone who really loves hiking. I don't know if I would have been able to continue. And the fact that you didn't even hesitate, it just, I've said this a bunch this episode, but it's crazy to me, dude. You're nuts. You're fucking nuts, dude. and I mean that in the best way possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already saving up for the next one, so.
So that's where I was going. So, yeah, we're going to get into a story in just a second. That's cue to fucking think of a story. But I usually ask this last, but I just feel like it segues so well here. Or at least it did until I said that it segues well. Now I just fucking ruined it. But, yeah, dude, what's next? PCT, CDT, something else? Tell me what's good.
As far as like that distance PCT, I'm shooting for April of next year. So I'm working like a fucking dog right now. Mm-hmm. I work 2 jobs. I'm just stashing money. 3 weeks after I got back. I came back broke. That's probably something super important for anybody heading out on a thru hike. Like, have some money stashed aside for when you get home.
Easier said than done, but important nonetheless.
Yeah, I actually, after I got home, was the first time my cell phone payment was not made on time.
Yikes.
And I was like asking all these, I was like freaking out. I'm like, so like, is my cell phone going to get cut off? And everyone's like, no, like you have like a month or 2. And I'm like, what? Like I didn't understand how it worked. Cause I've never paid my cell phone payment late.
Yeah.
So like, I came back with like, like $400 in my savings account, I think. But real quickly spun it around. I could probably go do a thru hike right now, actually. With the money I have in savings, kind of gross how like minimalistic I've become.
Mm-hmm.
Like guys at work are like, oh, do you want to buy lunch? And I'm like, no, like I packed a sandwich, and it's just it's funny. But PCT, shooting to do that next year. I have other stuff planned that's a week long, 2 weeks long, stuff like that.
But next year, dude, like as in
2021.
Okay, 2021. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. I thought you meant like 20. I guess it's already 2020, but I don't know. I thought you meant like this next season, I guess. But that makes sense. That makes sense.
Oh God, I wish. If I knew that I could have swung it, I would have.
Nah, man, give yourself a break, dude. Give yourself a fucking break. You just went through hell, man.
Yeah, if I knew in October that I could have swung it, but I was in Virginia, like trying to get into Tennessee.
Nah, dude, give yourself a break. You'll get back out there.
Oh yeah, because your IB Tat interview, mm-hmm. Like that back to back, like it sounds like
it's brutal, dude. It's brutal.
Yeah, dude, I don't know how he did it.
Dude, it's brutal. I'm gonna be hopefully interviewing I probably shouldn't make this promise because I haven't actually set up the episodes yet, but I'll say this. I'd like to interview some people who hiked the AT last year that are going to be setting out on the PCT this year. And yeah, dude, I kind of want to maybe press them on that just a little bit because honestly, mostly stemming from my conversation with IB Tat, but from other people as well that have done them back to back. Like that's tough, man. That's tough on your fucking body. Like I don't care.
It's crazy.
I don't care who you are. Like it's yeah. It's,
I know a ton of people that hiked the AT last year that are headed out on the PCT or the CDT this year, and I'm like, wow, what? How like I still can't even run. Like my knees and stuff like that, they're not like shot. Like I can walk around and stuff. Like I'm fine. But every time I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go for a run with my dog, and like instantly, like my knees are like, no, you're fucking not.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, dude, it's tough for sure. It's totally doable. Obviously, people fucking do it, but yeah, it's tough. Dude, let's do a story. So, people listening, I feel like I kind of made it sound like I didn't remind you about the story based on my comment a few minutes ago. I kind of did. I feel like Christopher listens to the show enough that he kind of knows. So I feel like I didn't have to give you an explicit, like 2 days ahead of time, reminder about the story. Because honestly, I fucked up the scheduling so much with this that we didn't even know we were going to record until like today. So anyways, did you have a second to think of something, or do you need a second to think of something?
2,200 miles, and it's funny. You're like, oh, you have a story, and it's like,
Dude, same here, honestly, because like I've been like, cause one time I did an episode with Baker where it was my 50th episode, and he interviewed me, and he asked me at the end to share a story, and I like could not think of anything that was from my thru hike. The only story I could think of, because I kind of know ahead of time, was from a hike I did like way before I fucking did the AT. So it's weird how you can hike so much and then still like kind of draw a blank, you know?
well, it's it's one of those things where like I have 152,000 stories. I don't even know what qualifies like a good story.
See, and also to be fair, I feel like,
you know what I mean. But like people at home are like, oh, like we just want to hear something. And it's
I feel like most of this episode was a story, so you know, especially since you already shared one from your thru hike already on the show too. It's not like this is your first time on either.
I'm just trying to think of like a really good one, and I'm drawing a blank.
You should tell the story of how your appendix burst. No, just kidding.
Dude, that's my story, dude. Oh my god, I made front page of my local newspaper.
Tell it. Let's hear it. Wait, about your thru hike or about your appendix? Like
the whole thing. They're
local
like,
homeless guy's appendix burst.
Basically, yeah. Like, no, the headline was "Defying Death on the Appalachian Trail."
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ!
And I was like, I read the
intense.
article, and I'm like, this is horrible. So now I walk down the street with my dog. She's like pooping in somebody's lawn, and somebody's like, hey, you're the guy from the newspaper. And I'm like, hey, let me pick up my dog's poop.
Jesus Christ. Did they like interview you, or did they just like creep your Insta and fucking post the story?
Dude, it's weird. Like, I'm known all over town. I can't even go into Shenandoah National Park without people like, hey, you're a Nubis, right? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, I follow you on Instagram. I'm like, hey, what's up? I don't know. I know that I have one. I just never came up with one.
That's good enough, man. This is your second episode. Yeah, I expect my guests to tell one story. I don't expect them to tell two, especially since your entire episode pretty much was
the story.
Exactly, right? Like most people that I have on the show, like what happened to you there would be their end of episode story, but we just purposely covered it for most of the episode. So you're good, man. You're off the hook.
Thank you.
Dude, see, normally I'll ask people what's next, but we already covered that. So why don't you go ahead and plug this super famous Instagram for those that missed your first episode, and for those who might have downloaded Instagram just to fucking follow your shit after this crazy episode, which I don't know if that's actually a thing, but maybe. I don't know. I should have just told you to plug your Instagram. I don't know why I'm going on right now, but yeah, dude, what's your Instagram, social media, all that stuff?
A walk with Winnie, underscores in between every single word.
Nice. I will have a link to that in the show notes, as usual. Dude.
Hey, are you going to be at Trail Days?
I don't know, man.
You gotta say yes. Say yes.
I want to, but you got to keep in mind it's a lot easier for you to drive down from where you live than from me up here in the fucking tundra in Vermont. So.
Yeah, but you need a full blown booth.
It would be fun. I'll tell you that. I'm gonna say a maybe, leaning towards no, but it would be fun.
What? No, you're leaning towards no.
And the only, not because I don't want to go, but just because, dude, I work a desk job. Like, I only have a certain amount of paid time off, and I kind of want to save it to like do some hikes and stuff this summer. That's, kind of what I'm thinking. And I would probably have to fly down there, and I don't know. It's a lot. Yeah, I don't know. Unlikely, but I have thought about it. I do think it would be a lot of fun. I'm sure I would meet some people that listen to the show and watch my stupid videos and stuff like that too, which would be cool. So, and plus it'd just be fun to get drunk with a bunch of hikers, but maybe. Maybe, we'll see.
I'm using PTO for it, so
maybe I'll have to. I guess it's and it's like a weekend too, so maybe I can make it work. It would be fun. It would be fun as hell, that's for sure. Yeah, maybe you can try to convince me. I'm open to being convinced. I'll say that.
I'm gonna mention it, and I'm just gonna comment it on Instagram all the time.
Just luckily for you, I haven't been posting on Instagram very much lately, but
I haven't either.
All right, dude. Let's wrap it up here. Thank you so much. I'm so stoked that you were able to finish the trail. I'm stoked that you're healthy. I'm stoked that everything worked out in that regard. And I'm stoked to hear you're going to be back out on the trail soon. So, yeah, dude. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to everybody listening. Yeah, have a good one. Peace out.